Continuing our study in Matthew chapter 5, looking at the Beatitudes, going through each of these Beatitudes that are in this lesson that Jesus gives here in Matthew chapter 5 as we start the Sermon on the Mount. We have learned that the Beatitudes are all about faith. We see how faith begins, we see how faith develops, we see how it matures, and then we see how faith is tested. Today we look at verse 5. And in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 5 it says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." You know, we look at how faith begins and we focused on these. We look at these first three Beatitudes. We already looked at the poor in spirit. We looked at those that mourn. And then today we look at the meek. You know, the poor in spirit is that man who sees that there is a God. He sees himself in perspective to God, and he sees that he has nothing before God. Then you have those that mourn, that they realize in doing that, realizing that there is a God, and where they stand in front of God, that person that mourns realizes their situation, how sin has ruined them. And he mourns for himself. He mourns for the sin of the world. And we talked about that last week. Both of these are essential to the beginning of faith. For they are at the heart of what turns us away from being self-reliant, looking to ourselves for everything, and us turning and looking to God and trusting in Him. You know, Matthew 5:5, where it says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Again, remember, we are talking about how faith begins. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 4 says, "Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." Meekness is essential to godly living. If we are going to experience the kind of life that God desires for us, then we have to learn how to apply all these characteristics that we're reading about to our lives. So let's look at meekness and look at this from Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. First of all, let's define meekness. Let's define meekness. You know, the Bible dictionary defines meekness as an attitude of humility toward God and gentleness toward men, springing from a recognition that God is in control. Now, although weakness and meekness may look similar, they are not the same. Weakness is something that is due to bad circumstances or negative circumstances, such as a lack of strength or a lack of courage. Meekness is a person's conscious choice. It is strength and courage under control, coupled with kindness. So, again, don't mistake this, because sometimes people will get that impression or act like Jesus was this soft and, person that just let people push all over him. That's not what meekness is. Strength under power, strength under control. It is not weakness, and it is not fearfulness. The Greek word here is, I try to pronounce it, praus, P-R-A-U-S. And it is used to describe a soothing medicine. It was used by sailors. This word was used by sailors to describe a gentle breeze. Farmers used it to describe a broken colt. So again, think about that from that Greek word. Examples of great power under control. A medicine that is powerful and created, but yet soothes whatever problem you're having. A light breeze that will still move a ship very powerfully when it's that light, gentle breeze. And then a colt that has been broken and has been trained so that you have that great power of that steed that can be used to do what you need to do. Great power under control. Turn over to Psalm 37. Turn over to Psalm 37. We'll start reading in verse 1 of Psalm 37. Do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. He shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret, it only causes harm. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall be no more. Indeed, you will look carefully for his place, but it shall be no more. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Look at what Scripture tells us about meekness. The meek shall inherit the earth. Those who have strength, those who have power, but have it under control. Think about a powerful army. It's the biggest thing you have to have with a powerful army. Good control. Good leadership. Because if you don't have control over all of that power, what happens? Chaos. And we see that. What happens to a country when that power is gone? That control is gone. And even with those great weapons divvied out to all these different parties, how much can they do with it? Power under control. Some other passages that talk about meekness. We see Matthew chapter 11 and verse 29. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. Therefore, the prisoner of the Lord beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 11. But you, O man of God, flee these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and gentleness. Titus chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, he says, remind them to be subject to rulers and authorities, to obey, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one, to be peaceable, gentle, showing all humility to all men. Do we look at this definition of meekness? It's not weakness, it is having power, but doing so with control and showing kindness to others. So what is meekness then? Secondly, what does meekness have to do with faith? Remember, in looking at this in the order that it goes, meekness follows poor in spirit and mourning. So this is somebody who already recognizes his own emptiness. He already understands that he has to fall down at God's feet. This is the one that has already looked at himself. And he has that shame and that disgrace of his sin and the sins of the whole world. And he mourns deeply for the consequences. So I know that I have to have God. And I look at myself and I see the state that I'm in. That's the person where we get to meek. Meek is the one who realizes, I don't have anything that I can use to fight the world. I don't have anything that I can use to subdue the world or to overcome the things of the world. Me and my arsenal here, I don't have the ability to do it myself. I have power, which means I can fight. I can do something, but I can't do it by myself. So what I understand is, I understand that I can harness that power. I can use it under the direction of God, and I can acknowledge that God is in control of that power. Meekness is an essential quality that finally and completely causes a person to believe in, to trust, to depend on, and to obey God. Because I know that I've fallen down at his feet, I've seen what shape I'm in, and I understand I cannot fix it. But I can sure take everything that I am and everything that I have, and I can use that to go after sin. I can give everything I have over to God and let him use me. Do we have to give up power to become meek? Well, does medicine give up its power to cure the sick? Or does it use it in a controlled manner, a controlled way? We understand a lot of medicines. What would happen if you took that whole bottle of medicine and swallowed it down in one swallow? You might not be around too long. Something that cures you or can help make you better, taken, not harnessed, or the controlling the power of it, you do too much of it, what's going to happen? We understand that. Everything has to be done in moderation with control. That's why we have directions on how to use things. That's why we have warning labels on things. So the medicine doesn't give up its power, but that power is used in a controlled way. Does the wind give up power to push a ship across the sea? Or does they use that power in a controlled way to help move that ship? Does the horse give up its power when it's broken to the owner's command? Of course not. That power is used in a controlled way. Man doesn't give up his power when he becomes meek. He takes that power and uses it under God's control. He accomplishes what is good, what is productive, instead of causing harm and destruction. He knows that he is not the answer. God is the answer. So I'm going to use my power the way God wants me to use it because I don't have the answers. I don't need to overcome or overwhelm because I know that God will do that. And he will use me to help with that. Being meek is fully understanding. It's taking the understanding that I have to have God and the understanding that I am in sin. But it is understanding that I've got power to help, but I can't do it myself. I've got to give that over to him. Well, we see number 3, the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek are happy. They are blessed because of the fulfillment of the Lord's promise that they will inherit the earth. We understand that God's people will inherit a new earth. 2 Peter 3 verse 13, nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. But that verse speaks of heaven. But the promise that Jesus makes here in Matthew is the present world. This is present times. Yes, we will inherit this new heaven and this new earth, but that's not what he's talking about here in Matthew. He's talking about the current. Jesus wants us to understand that only the meek will enjoy the blessings of God in this life. All worthwhile things of this world are in the possession of the meek. Love, friendship, kindness, goodness, peace. All of those characteristics that make a worthwhile life on this earth are possessed by those that are meek. The meek are able to enjoy the best that others have to offer because they're able to give their best to others. When we get rid of self and we stop trying to do it ourselves, we start looking at others and seeing what they offer. Y'all never would have guessed it in all the years I've been out here that I'm a talker. Imagine that. One of the characteristics that I have to teach myself and try to learn is to be quiet sometimes and listen to what other people say. If y'all had met me 30 years ago, hopefully you'd be looking and going, he's doing pretty good now. Made a lot of progress in 30 years. But you know what? There's a whole lot of people that are smarter than I am. There's a whole lot of people that have better ideas than I do. There's a whole lot of people that know more than I do. And a lot of times I've just got to be quiet and listen to them. That's where we understand being meek. I don't have the ability to do it myself. I think about work and I think about my staff. I could not do the work of my department all by myself. I know how to do all of the different pieces. I've got the knowledge, but I physically, mentally, all of that could not get everything done that my department does. I have to have my group, my staff, my team. I have to have everybody doing the pieces that they do to bring all of that together. We've got to do the same thing spiritually. We've got to understand that I cannot take on the world by myself. And again, acknowledging God and saying, I've got to have God for salvation. I've got to have God in my life. Knowing that I'm wrong, but then understanding then I've got to do something, but I've got to give it to Him and let Him tell me where I need to go. We've got these little maps on our phone. I'm bad about ignoring where that little map tells me to go because I know better. Well, I've driven this up 10 times. I know which way I need to go. Sure enough, we go around the corner and traffic stopped, or there's a train blocking, or there's something. And you know what? That little map had a little bit more information than I had. But that's hard for us to do, isn't it? To turn over to somebody else. We have to do that to God. We have to turn ourselves over to Him and say, yes, I've got this power. I've got this ability. I've got knowledge. I've got the ability to do these things. But I need you to tell me how to do it. Which means I've got to go to this book and understand what He wants me to do. And I've got to do it His way. I can't save myself doing it my way. And contrary to the opinion of the day in the religious world, people can't do it. We can't do it ourselves. We've got to do it His way. That's being meek. Understanding that God has told me how to do it, and I'm going to give my power to Him and do it His way because He knows better. That means I'm going to live my life a certain way. That means I'm going to do things a certain way. I'm going to react a certain way. I'm going to act a certain way. I'm going to do all of those things. Why? Because He told me it's better. I'm not going to ignore the instruction like I ignore my Siri map. When He tells me to turn right, I'm going to turn right. I'm going to listen to Him. And then I'm going to give 100% of my effort to Him. Why will the meek inherit the earth? Because they're going to have all of these wonderful qualities that come with doing it God's way. Think about what great things a congregation does when you have an entire congregation working together, doing it His way. Putting all of their power, all of their effort, all of their abilities, all of their energy into doing it His way. Isn't that much better than a congregation that's got a whole bunch of groups wanting to do it their way? And I think a lot of us have been in those congregations at times, and you know how terrible that is when you got all these people fighting and jockeying for position and trying to do it their way. We need to stop. And when we talk about meekness, that's what we're talking about. We see the beginnings of faith, and that is, I have to be poor in spirit, understanding that I need God. I've got to mourn because of the sin in my life, and then I've got to give all my energy to doing it His way. Each of these is important to turning us away from ourselves and turning us to God. Remember, this is about building our faith. That's the whole point of the Beatitudes, is building our faith. To start the faith, I've got to turn away from me and understand that it's all Him. And that's what these first three Beatitudes are about. Without those three characteristics, faith cannot begin. How's our faith? Are we putting all of our efforts into what He has told us to do? Are we putting all of our efforts into doing it His way? Or are we still looking to self? Let's be the meek that the Bible tells us to be. If we can help you in any way, please come as we